Folks are settling in. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis. Thank you for joining us for the fourth installment of the ACUHO webinar series, a new collaborative effort between our affinity networks designed to foster connection and share learning across the field of campus housing and residential life. This free webinar series is part of the ACUHO ongoing commitment to spotlight timely topics and elevate voices from across our profession. We're so glad to have you here today. Again, as I've shared, my name is Alexis Montero. I use he and his pronouns, and I'm a resident hall director at the University of Connecticut, UConn, and then I'm the chair of the Black Professional Network as well. For those who may be new to ACUHO, we are the Association of College and University Housing Officers International, dedicated to advancing campus housing and residential life globally. We are excited to welcome you again to today's session. Our presentation today, as you see in the slide, is Do You Suck as a Supervisor? We'll examine the impact of ineffective supervision, not only on individual team members, but also on the overall morale and productivity of a department. This session is designed for professionals who want to grow their supervisory skills and avoid common pitfalls that can lead to turnover and dissatisfaction. Whether you're questioning your approach or striving for continued improvement, this conversation is for you. This will be an interactive and engaging session, so we encourage you to participate. If you would like to unmute to speak, please use your Zoom hand at the bottom within your reaction button, and we'll grant you panelists permission to show and utilize your video and audio as well. Or you can engage with us via chat. This is going to be a very interactive presentation, so we truly appreciate you all engaging with us. If you have questions that you would like Dr. Carter-Atkins to address at the end, please utilize the Q&A function also at the bottom of your screen, and we value your contributions as well. Today's session is going to be recorded and will be available on the ACUHO YouTube channel so follow, subscribe. And as I wrap up today, we're going to have some brief announcements about upcoming opportunities. Now to the star of the show. Dr. Stephanie Carter-Atkins, hers, is a seasoned residential life professional with over 20 years of experience in higher education, specifically in residential life and housing. Currently, she serves as the Executive Director of Residence Life and Housing at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Stephanie is passionate about engaging in discussion about supervision, leadership, and her personal favorite, burpees. Outside of work, she enjoys spending time with her husband, Leroy, and son, Christian, or lifting heavy weights with friends at CrossFit as well. Dr. Carter-Atkins, thank you so much for spending your time and spending your day with us and the gems that you were going to drop. So the floor is yours.
Oh man, I appreciate that introduction. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me and letting me do this presentation. I did this first at ACUHO because I'm in I consider the best region at ACUHO. So when ACUHO reached out to me, I was like, sure, let's do it again. So the premise of this whole thing came from a blog post that I did for RoomPact, and it was entitled Do You Suck as a Supervisor? As it was mentioned, I enjoy being able to have these conversations because I just don't think as a field, we talk enough about supervision. And, you can probably ask lots of people who left their job why they did. And a lot of times it's because of bad supervision or other things that have come up. So I think we owe it to ourselves really to be able to have that conversation. So welcome and thank you all for attending and kind of zooming in. And as Alexis mentioned, this is going to be very interactive. Like, I'm not going to be talking my whole time. I want to hear from you, your experiences, all the great things. There are lots of questions that happen throughout. So please use the raise hand feature so we can get you to hearing from you. So I'll talk a little bit about who I am. I'm getting to know while you were here, what you're hoping to get from this presentation. We'll actually do the actual presentation, and then there'll be time for questions at the end. So as I kind of mentioned, I'll go through this quickly. So yes, I'm a mom, a wife, executive director, supervisor. I'm a very scaled CrossFitter, and I do burpees a lot. I start out every year since 2017 and do 100 days of burpees. So thankfully that is wrapped up. Early April finishes that out. But by the time it's over, I had done 5,050 burpees at minimum because there's always extra. So if you ever want to do some burpees with me, catch me in January or any other time. I'm happy to do burpees with people. I'm a friend, all the things that come with it. So let's get started. I would love for a couple people to tell me when you saw the presentation title, what brought you here today and what are you hoping to gain from this? So use your raise hand feature. There's no wrong answer, truly. You came here for whatever reason, whatever purpose. Maybe you just wanted to see me. Oh, I'll take that too. Whatever you'd like to share. So I'd love to hear from folks. What brought you here and what are you hoping to gain?
Good afternoon, Dr. Carter-Atkins. My name is Jimmy Hutchful, calling all the way from Michigan State. So good to see you. And what brought me here was one, I had an incredible supervision as far back as undergrad, where you were one of our directors in housing. So I'm now in a position where I'm trying to do some end of the year assessment to see like what did I do as a supervisor this year and for these past couple of years, and how can I improve? So thank you for
Love
this.
that. Thanks, Jimmy. Who else? Come on, there's got to be somebody.
I apologize. My name is Raekwon Lunkin. I serve as one of the residence coordinators here at Florida State University. It's nice to see you, Dr. Stephanie Atkins. Um, Similar to what the past person just said, I've been supervising for the past almost 3 years coming up, and I always think there's room to improve as a supervisor. So I think that finding out gems from other people that's in this space, as well as learning from, the doctors that's in this space is also a thing that I want to take away from this professional development.
I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, not sure if there's any other hands, but I'm gonna go to my next question so people can chime in here too. Where did you learn how to supervise? Who taught you? Who's got an answer for this? Who taught you how to supervise?
Hello, my name is Kimber Thomas. I'm from Boise State. And I think for me, I'm kind of new to supervising. I've worked in housing for about 5 years and I've predominantly supervised student staff, hoping to eventually transfer out of that into supervise pro staff. But I think for myself, I learned how to supervise from good and bad supervisors. And so I learned what I don't like and what I don't want to be, but also some really good characteristics that I would like to have. And so I'm excited to learn more.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Who else has an answer to this? Will there be one more?
I feel like I got to learn how to supervise in my grad program. Very it was assistantship required and internship required, so it was very practical application, and a lot of our discussions in our cohort were on how to supervise.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Supervision is one of those tricky things, right? Like as the first person said, like mostly we have either had really good supervisors or bad ones, and we learn the things we do or don't want to do from them and how we want to be better or be unique in that style. But it is often not a structured thing, right? We don't take a class on supervision. Typically, our grad programs don't talk about it. I love, obviously, when you have an assistantship and you kind of learn on the job, but we're just kind of thrown into supervision and kind of hope for the best, right? That we can do it, we can manage people. And sometimes we just can't. Sometimes we are given these opportunities. And in my opinion, the worst thing we can do is ruin someone's experience, right? Because we aren't prepared to be supervisors or because we're learning and everything is trial by fire some days. But to me, what I hope, at least for the next time that we are together for this presentation, if you have not ever thought about who you are as a supervisor or thought about the impact that you have on other people, that you would just take some time now to be able to do it, right? There may not be a lot of things in this presentation that you're like, oh my gosh, that is rocket science, or I learned all these amazing new things. Maybe you will, hopefully. But if you don't, then at least for right now, you will have taken an hour of your day to think about who you are as a supervisor and how you show up and the impact that you have on other people. And to me, that is a win, because we just don't ever seemingly have that time to do so. Or maybe you're waiting to the summertime when things quiet down and move out, or whatever the case may be. And then something else will come up. So then we don't ever get to think about who we are as supervisors. So take this time to do it. So, right, let's get into it, right? So sucky supervisors don't communicate effectively. I bet some people are saying, you're right about that. Absolutely. I can think back to all the great things. So sucky supervisors, usually all these things are listed here, and this is just a small piece of it, right? So there's a lack of clarity or neglecting nonverbal communication, right? You've got to check your tone and body language, and sometimes people don't pay attention to that. Or maybe the feedback you give, and we'll talk about feedback a couple other places, is overly negative, right? Like if all you do as a supervisor is focus on the negative pieces, like who wants to be around that? Like personally, professionally, nobody wants to do that. Or maybe you just avoid difficult conversations because that's hard for you. And let me tell you, the more and more you climb in this field or any other, if you're managing people or being a part of that process, you're going to have difficult conversations. It just is a part of the work. So find a way to get comfortable with those things so you can have them. Or perhaps there's a lack of empathy. Right? You are failing to acknowledge the feelings or concerns that, people on your team are bringing up, and you just don't care. Obviously, it doesn't seem to come off that way. Or you ignore staff input, or there's inconsistent messaging or public criticism. So again, much like the negative feedback, if all you are ever doing is publicly criticizing folks on your team or your peers or someone else, like, no, that, as it says, it decreases morale and trust in your leadership. So nobody wants to be around that. But oftentimes you have maybe had a supervisor or someone in your life, it could be a friend, whatever, who's shown some of these characteristics. And to me, as a supervisor, this is what makes people not want to work for you. Like if this is all they can expect from you when it comes to the communication and your style, that's not it. So I'm curious for someone, if you feel comfortable unmuting or raising your hand, have you experienced any of these things? What does that look like in your professional life, right? When you've had a supervisor who hasn't done what they need to do, where's that shown up? Raise your hand.
Testing.
Go ahead.
In my experience, when a supervisor doesn't show up the way I need them to, it creates more work for me because I know that I need to improve and I can see the things that I want to improve on, but assessing myself as a professional, like being newer to a role, is difficult. So I'm doing like double or triple the work on top of trying to guide people under me. So those are the negative effects that I've experienced.
Yeah. That's a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
it
appreciate
is.
you sharing. I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else wants to add to this part of the conversation when it comes about communication?
I know I have struggled as a autistic person with lack of communication, especially a lack of self-disclosure from senior leadership of to the lack of empathy, just kind of being more robotic and not bringing, like, I want to hear about the plants in your office and what their names are. Just a little bit more human things about people.
Absolutely. And someone's got to take the time to know you, right? And understand that that's how you operate. And you want to, this is a part of who you are as a professional. So I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing.
One thing that I find is the further on I go in the field and in my career, the balance of the student affairs and supervision and student affairs typically early on, particularly leans onto those soft skills, right? A lot of our supervisors are very developmental. They have a lot of empathy. They want to provide positive feedback. They want you to grow. They want to invest in you. And so we get conditioned to that. And then the
Mhm.
further we go into the field, that isn't necessarily true. And I think I struggle with that as a supervisee. I also struggle with that as a supervisor. But even as a supervisee, you know, I am kind of like, where did the days of my supervisor cheering me on go? You know, and our one-on-ones being a lot of you're doing a great job and keep going. And now it's a lot more task, KPI, KPI, KPI. And so that adjustment, and then thinking about the same thing as I move on from supervising entry-level professionals to mid-level professionals, they may not be looking for that, or they might be looking for that and not sure when does that switch happen.
Right.
And how do we transition to holding them accountable about getting the tasks of the department done, while also I still want to develop you. I still want to spend time developing you.
Yeah. Yeah, right. There's always something that I can learn and develop. And I most certainly, just like you, like I need that space with my supervisor too. Yes, I will absolutely get my job done and all the other things, but you know, it's nice to hear the great things too in the midst of that. I appreciate folks for sharing that. So here's some strategies to not suck, right? So it's pretty simple. Set some clear goals and expectations. Don't fall in the gap. I read a book with some staff a couple years ago, and it talked about the expectations gap. So from the point of the book is everyone enters a job or enters a space and they have expectations. And also your employer has expectations of you. But when you fail to talk about the expectations that you have of your supervisor, of your employment, your place, and your job, you know, fails to tell you about the expectations it has, this is the gap. So you get frustrated because, well, nobody told you that, you know what? The expectation is you show up 5 minutes early for work. So you're showing up on time and they expect you to be there 5 minutes early. So now everybody's looking at you like, well, why aren't you here on time? And you're thinking, I am. This is now a gap that you are in. So how can we make sure that there is not a gap there, that you are speaking your expectations, their clear goals, and that you are getting that from your employer, right? Provide your team with regular updates. Encourage staff input or two-way communication, right? So as much as I am giving information to my staff, I need to hear from them too. It is a give and take conversation that we are having in the midst of this kind of supervisory relationship that we are in. Deliver balanced and consistent feedback. As I said, we'll talk about feedback again. I keep a post-it note on my computer. If you've ever seen me in person, that says feedback is a gift. I always remind people it may not come wrapped the way you want it, but it is a gift that someone gives you some feedback to help you be a better professional. But it's got to be consistent as well, right? The good and the bad and all the things, constructive, whatever that looks like. Ensure consistent messaging. So I shouldn't be able to talk to 5 different people who work with you and hear that you were saying one thing here, one thing there. Like everybody's getting 5 different messages about what it is we're trying to do, work related in our office, whatever the case may be. So like be consistent. So maybe we won't have a chance to say this, but you know, I want you to think about how you would rate your communication style, right? As a supervisor, how are you showing up and making sure that you are giving consistent messages to folks, that you are being balanced and what that looks like, giving feedback, asking for feedback too. That is a part of this process and being able to learn and grow from that. But to me, you got to be able to think about how it is you're showing up. And here we are talking about feedback, right? So sucky supervisors don't give feedback well. So here are some of the great things, right? When we think about supervision. So sucky supervisors will typically give feedback that judges people and not their actions. So, right, like nobody wants that, right? It's the thing that I did, hopefully not me as the person that you were saying something about. Or they want to give you the feedback sandwich to make it feel less awkward, right? So good thing, bad thing, good thing. Okay, right? Like if there's something you really want to tell me, like, let's just please address the thing. You don't have to like butter me up to be able to tell me what's going on. Or perhaps the feedback is vague, right? They don't even really address the issue, or they don't feel like, you know, the plane is circling, but they're not landing it on whatever the issue is. What does that look like for you? Or maybe they just delay giving feedback altogether. So I have to remind folks, like, yeah, most people, right, have an annual evaluation or that cycle. My hope is that when you're telling me and giving me feedback, that it is not the first time I've heard it, does not show up on my evaluation. And I know that happens to people because that is sometimes how supervisors can be when they honestly suck, right? Like, please tell me what's going on. Give me a chance to fix a thing. Give me some feedback so I know what's going on. I can address the issue. Or again, maybe they only focus on negative feedback. If all I hear from my supervisor is the bad things that I'm doing, 1, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Or 2, like, is everything bad? Like, is everything bad, or is there something good about the things that I'm doing in my work that you could also share with me? That'd be great. Or maybe they use a punitive or a threatening tone. So, you know, I think we all understand that our jobs, you know, we can make poor decisions and maybe that means something will happen to our job later down. But I don't want to know that I can be replaced every 5 seconds. Like nobody wants to know that. Do I understand that? Absolutely. Do my decisions have consequences at times? 100%. But I don't want that to be the tone that people are walking on eggshells because they're afraid to do things because, well, you might lose your job for this or X, Y, and Z may happen. So, you know, or they just don't follow up when feedback is given. So, right, like you do need to check back in. If you're telling me there's something I need to do differently or change or enhance in some way, please follow back up and make sure that like what is happening there is actually coming to fruition. So, ways to not suck when giving feedback. So provide feedback as close to the event or behavior as possible. Absolutely. I hearken this back to a time when I had some puppies, you know, when you're kind of going through the potty training phase. So what they tell you usually to do is if the puppy has a mistake inside, like you're supposed to walk him over and say, no, we don't do this here, right? We go outside, we go to the bathroom. So, you know, going back 2 weeks later and trying to put my dog's nose in the stuff to say, we don't do this here, like the puppy will be like, I don't understand. Like, why didn't you tell me about this happen? You know, not that the dog is talking, but tell me what's going on as close to the behavior so I can fix it. I need to know something was wrong, all the things. So as it says, schedule follow-up conversation. So if you ask me something if you told me something I needed to do feedback wise and kind of take care of it, please follow up to see if I did it, you know, check back in, see what that looks like. Focus on the behavior or the performance and not attack the person, as I mentioned before. So also be specific, right? What is it the thing that has happened? Being able to give some examples of maybe something that went on in a meeting or maybe something I said that wasn't appropriate, whatever, please be able to tell me. I am definitely one of those people, I need to specifically know what it is I did so I can do something about it or whatever. There's a feedback method that people talk about. It's the SBI method. So capture the situation, describe the behavior, and explain the impact. So situation, behavior, impact. So something happened. This is the actual behavior of the thing that you did. You know, maybe you were talking over someone in a meeting, you know, and someone could consider that rude, but the behavior is you cut someone off. You talked over them. Like they didn't feel valued in the things that they were saying because you just talked over it. And the impact that this now has is maybe this person doesn't want to speak up in a meeting anymore, or maybe they feel devalued by you in this situation. So the impact piece is what is also there, right? So as it says, strive for balanced approach when giving your feedback, right? Recognize the things that are going on and acknowledge strengths and positive contributions while also addressing issues for improvement if there are things. So I'm curious, what is the last piece of feedback you shared with a staff member on your team or with a colleague? So please raise your hand. What's the last piece of feedback you shared with somebody? You don't have to give their name, but just the last piece of feedback, please.
Hello, everyone. I am a house director here at the University of Bloomington. My name is Carter-Atkins. And the last feedback I've given to someone was basically be clear. My goal was to ascertain within the system of no HR how we're going to navigate typical things we deal with my students. And in a space where it's a housing environment, we have to be cognizant of their behavior as well as how it impacts their behavior going in the future versus what their actions are now. And so trying to help these students understand the ramifications of their actions was very clear from a standpoint of a higher leadership board, but also a student organizational impact from a standpoint of your actions or reflections. And what those actions are going to be the determination of what we do now.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Clear as kind, right? Brene Brown, all the things. Thank you for that. Who else has some feedback, a piece of feedback they shared with someone?
Hello, I'm not sure if you can hear me too well.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. My name is Naomi Saxon. I work at Georgia Southern University. Last piece of feedback I gave was to some of our grads, and just knowing they are still trying to learn, working professionally, but knowing, you know, time and place and where you're speaking about things. 'Cause we've all had to learn from somewhere and grow from somewhere. But like find you someone outside of this space to get your things out. Um, just because things do come back, we all work together, so it does float around. And that's not what I want for you all. especially as you are moving forward. So, how do you find your own space to talk about the things you need to talk about, but thinking about where you're doing it and how you're doing it?
That's a great piece of feedback. I appreciate that. My people are like my friends at the gym. Truly, right? They are not affiliated with the university. So when there are moments and I'm just like, y'all will not believe it. Like these are my people. And I don't have to worry about it coming back to me because absolutely. So thank you for that. I'm not sure if anybody else is unmuted. If not, we'll go to the next one. So next, what's the last piece of feedback you received and what did you do with this information? So who can share the last piece of feedback given to you and what did you do with this information? I hope your supervisors are giving you feedback or your peers.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my name is Gertrude Waigumbulisi. I'm a hall director at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. I'm. This is going to be my third year in this role. I did not get my degree in higher ed or social work like most of the other hall directors. I'm a city planner by training, so I coming from a very technical field, going to another field was, new to me,
Yeah.
But I got feedback where that was 2 weeks ago during the one-on-one as the semester comes to a close, and the supervisor said, well, you've done very well, but there was this instance where you didn't pay attention to detail. Okay. I sent you this email and I thought, I asked you 3 times if this is what I should send to the RA. Now, me, I'm conflicted by the fact that I come from a different culture where you respect authority, you don't question authority. But hey, I'm 57 now. I can't. And having children who are born in the States, they always challenge that Orthodox African, way of doing things. There's a hierarchy of authority. So I have had to balance those two things with, but I'm encouraged to ask, what did I do wrong? What did I miss? And then the supervisor told me, I'm no longer touchy. I'm middle-aged. So that's okay. That works on my side. So, and I went back and I reviewed that email. I looked at it step by step to an RA who has been an underperformer and has been somewhat problematic for the whole school year, So I was trying to navigate the contours of being empathetic to the RA, given some personal things the RA had shared, that information is not available to the supervisor, okay? So I think I made an error by leaving out some words, the messaging that I thought the RA might think I don't care, So I went back, read the email, went back, looked at the template. I thought, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have augmented the template, but I was doing it from a very personal angle. I did not want to send it the way it was because it seemed harsh to me. But that's because I had that background information from the RA and I could understand why the RA was just disinterested in the role and is just here because, well, there's room on board and yeah, and that's very expensive here. So yeah, to introspect and also reflect, balance, paying attention to the details and following strict orders.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. It's important to think about feedback, right? And how we get it and what that looks like. So Sucky supervisors don't model the way, right? So as it says, to suck, you should lead by example. So show up, meet deadlines, be the kind of person, the staff member that you desire to have on your team. Make your word your bond, all those great things that come along with that. You have to model the way of how you want folks to treat you and what that looks like. And you got to show up and be that person. Sucky supervisors lack vision and direction. So be a leader with clear vision and direction. That is important, right? So think about developing a strong vision and define the why. So a compelling vision answers a fundamental question: why does our organization exist? Why provides the foundation for all the decisions and actions. So you should be able to tie that back, right? This is why we exist. This is why we are providing housing to students on campus, or this is why we are doing this program, whatever the case may be. You should be able to think future oriented, right? Where are we going? What is it going to take to get there? This is our why that's kind of guiding this piece. So establish a clear direction through strategic planning, SMART goals, all those great things, right? So hopefully you are already in a practice of being able to do this, looking at whether they are your own individual goals, what this looks like for your department, depending on what your role is at your institution. Maybe how connected you are to the strategic planning piece, whether you are leading that for your office or you are part of making sure that comes to fruition and what that looks like. But being able to figure out and being able to articulate to folks, this is what we're trying to do. This is how we're going to get there. These are the goals and the steps and all the things that come with it. So, and being able to cultivate your leadership qualities. So some of the things it mentions: decisiveness, resilience, transparency, all the things that come along with those, active listening. So, transparency is about being able to make tough decisions, right? And well, decisiveness, being able to make these tough decisions. Transparency is being able to kind of share the why behind it. This is what's going on. This is all I can tell you, right? This is all I know. I'm being as transparent as possible. People really value that piece when it comes to supervision. And maybe sometimes you can't tell people why, or maybe you just don't understand, but being able to explain, this is the information I know. This is all I can tell you. This is all someone has told to me. And I need you to know this. When I find out more, I will tell you more, whatever that looks like, right? So empathy and emotional intelligence, and obviously being able to delegate. That's another piece of just being a clear leader who has direction and vision and going up to do all those things. It's important to be able to have those qualities. So let's take a moment to brag on you. And I totally appreciate the people who have already unmuted and done things, but who else? What would you say your staff says you do really well? So brag on yourself. What do you do great? Raise your hand. And you can think about it from the context I've already talked about: communication, strategic, vision planning, all those things. What do you do well?
All right. Hi, everyone. This is Erin. Greetings from Illinois. I do work in residential life. And some feedback that I recently received from my team is that they like that I'm willing to do the job that I have them doing. Meaning if I see them feeling overwhelmed, or if there's that, that situation that gets dropped on your lap and they need some assistance with managing something, I'm willing to step in and do it. And it was encouraging to hear that, because it lets me know that they see the fact that I'm willing to get my hands in with them. So that was a piece of feedback I received.
Love that. You sound like a servant leader. I love that. You got to get in there and do the things. Thank you for sharing. Who else? Who wants to brag on themselves?
Hey, Stephanie, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Deb Paget from Northwestern.
Hey, I can't see anybody's faces but my own. So hey, Deb.
Oh, good. Hey. So I often am told that people are really thankful in our office that I've kept consistent with my open door policy. So if my door is open, folks know that they can come in, they're welcome to take a seat, they're welcome to have a conversation. Small talk is welcome, big talk is welcome. And if my door is shut, then I'm probably working on a critical project with a really stiff deadline. And folks in our office really respect that about me. And then the other thing that I would say is my skill of long range planning. And so when I finish a process, or I'm working on a process, the minute it wraps, I'm thinking about what can we do to improve the process in the future. We're taking a minute to assess it, and then we're making the plan for the next cycle, especially when it comes to recruitment, selection, and training, which is my whole job right now.
Yeah. Thanks, Deb. I appreciate that. And we'll actually talk about open door policy in a little bit. So thank you for mentioning that. Who else wants to share, brag on themselves?
Good afternoon, Ariana from Clark Atlanta University. I'm the Associate Director of Residential Education. I would say my staff, if they were to brag on me, they would say I'm a really over communicator. I will send the email, I will send the reminder, I will send the Grand Rising text, don't forget. It's really easy for us in this fast-paced role to forget a lot, and then we try to hold people accountable, but it's like, everyone's human. So yeah, you might need a reminder. And I use that practice with our resident assistants as well. So I think they would say like, yeah, Miss Rodriguez she's a reminder person. She's gonna communicate all the time. So I think that would be my thing.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. All right, not sure if anybody else unmuted, but I'm gonna keep going. All right, so question, is it lonely at the top for a supervisor? Well, it absolutely is for one that sucks, right? So leaders have followers, right? So essentially it's not lonely at the top because there should be some people who are following you, right? You got to look back and see, is anybody back here? Is it just me by myself? And if it is just me, why is it just me? So there should be some people here. So my question for somebody who wants to unmute is, how are you making sure you're the leader or supervisor that others want to follow? What is it you do that makes people want to follow you? Who wants to share?
Yeah, I think for me, someone mentioned this just a little bit ago, but just being a servant leader, like recognizing that it's not really, for me, okay to ask my staff or anyone to do something that I'm not willing to do. And so I think showing like, look, I'm working just as hard as you are. I'm here in the trenches with you, like whatever it is, like we're gonna accomplish this together. And I think that's how I've kind of had success in being a supervisor, is just leading as a servant and not as like a dictator, just basically telling them like this is what needs to be done. But like, hey, like I have this vision with you, we're meeting this goal together,
Yeah.
and like just kind of working through those things as a team.
I love that. Thank you. Who else? How are you making sure you're the person that others want to follow? Don't be shy. This is your time to shine.
Hi, my name is Liz Holt. I'm at UMass Amherst, and I'm one of the area assistant directors here. And so one thing that my staff has told me, because I'm new in my position, is that I'm very supportive, and I'm always asking like, what can I do to help you be able to do what you need to do? How do I support you? And that I think is super helpful for them to know that like we're on the same page. I know things might be rough for you. What can I do? What can I take off of your plate to help you out?
That's awesome. I appreciate that. See, you sound like a great supervisor already, new to your role. I love it. Thank you. So here's some questions to ponder, right? When you think about yourself as a supervisor. So how are you investing in yourself as a leader on a consistent basis? What does that look like, right? It's great to go to conferences and do all those things, but on a day-to-day basis, how are you investing in your own leadership? I love listening to leadership podcasts, right? I walk a lot on campus, typically to work, home for lunch. So I will be in my big red headphones like an old lady walking around campus, just listening to podcasts about leadership. Because to me, that's important, right? There are great leadership people out here who are talking about things. And if you're picking up at least one little gem or tidbit that makes you a better supervisor or leader or person in general, that's great. Now, how are you investing in others, right? So how are you making sure that the folks who report up to you or the people who are around you are developing themselves and being ready for whatever the next step is, right? That can be student staff, professional staff, it doesn't matter. How are you investing in others and making sure that they are getting the development that they need? So are you doing what you love and loving what you do? If not, why not, right? Like, man, life is way too short, right? And I'm not going to say leave your job tomorrow, but like, I want you to love the work that you are doing and find ways to be able to do so and find what is going to bring that joy to you and the things that you are doing, right? Take care of today. So are you focused on the most important thing that's going on right now at this time? What's on your plate today? What are you trying to tackle? What does that look like? As we said, we can be pulled in a million different directions, but we got to figure out the things that are most important and take care of those things. And are you investing correctly, right? Are you investing your time with the right people? If so, what does that look like? If not, why not? All those things, right? So, and think. Are you taking or making time to think and or dream? I have often found, once again, we are going from one thing to the next thing, and there's a meeting or there's a crisis or there's a student or there's a thing. We don't have enough time to be able to think. We don't have enough time to be able to dream. How can I make things in my position or my office or my building or whatever a better space? Because we just don't give ourselves a chance to be able to think and dream. And that's why I said, at least for this hour that we're together, how are you focusing on you as a supervisor and things you could do differently and better, right? So Seki supervisors aren't visible and or available. So well, that's the thing, right? Here we are with this open door policy. Do you have one? Why or why not? How are you creating a psychologically safe environment for your team and the office? And how do you make time or find time to spend time with your team outside of meetings, right? We have plenty of meetings with one another, but what are your kind of more casual interactions or just in the office, catching up with folks, popping into someone's office? What does that look like? How are you investing time with people to get to know them and how they like to be treated and all the things that come along with it? So when you think about how you're creating a psychologically safe environment in your office, this is creating a culture of care, right? So people feel comfortable taking risks. Yeah, I'm not telling you to do like crazy things, but how are you making it so people feel like, man, if we were to do X, Y, and Z or change this one thing, could we try it? I'm definitely one of those people. I'm willing to try just about anything once, right? If you come up with a great idea and it may make things better, let's do it. If it doesn't work, guess what? We can go back to the old way. We got that way down pat. So how are we doing things in a space that people feel like I can dream, I can be able to be creative? Because guess what? You might be thinking of the one thing that someone else hasn't thought about and it makes our work easier or it makes something else better in our office. And here you are with this great idea because someone gave you the creative freedom to do so in the space to feel like I can take this step, I can do this thing, and I feel supported. To me, that's super important. So Seki supervisors don't trust their team. So part of this is another book, Trust and Inspire. So that I read with my staff. So one, move and get out of the way, right? Empower your team, trust and inspire them. So I want you to think about the things most of the time as a bad supervisor, you just don't get out of the way of your staff. You are like literally always there, or maybe you're micromanaging, or maybe you're doing all the things, but get out of their way. You hired someone for a reason. You were hired for a reason. Let them do the work, right? We don't often recognize how much we are in the way and how much of a toll that takes on staff and the work that they are trying to do or be able to be creative, right? So some of the takeaways that I wrote down to make a note from Trust and Inspire. So be a role model, right? Again, model the behavior you want to see in your staff. Want to model the way, as I said before. Foster open communication, right? That leads to a culture that folks feel comfortable, they feel creative, they understand the why behind the decision making because you're able to explain that and articulate it. You're giving regular feedback. You're doing all these things, right? There are opportunities for your staff or for you to be able to share. I want to contribute to the success of our team, and this is how I can do that. You are empowering your team to be able to make decisions and take ownership of their work and drive results. So you may be supervising folks who are over a building. Like, what creative freedom do they have in their building to work with their team or make decisions in there that, one, feed up into the larger work that we're all doing, but how are you given the freedom to be able to do that work? That means a lot to folks, right? You are also being able to connect your staff with a larger purpose, right? So most people want to know that their work is for some good, right? I'm not just spinning my wheels or doing whatever. It all connects up. So how are you as a supervisor making sure people understand the bigger picture of what that looks like and how that is going? So I'm curious, how have you been empowered in your role this year, or maybe how you've empowered others in theirs? So who would like to share some thoughts on that? Raise your hand. I hope you've been empowered this year. Share.
Hello, my name is Emily Heim. I'm the Assistant Director of Housing at James Madison University. And one way that I've been empowered this year was that my supervisor completely gave over upper class room selection process to me. I've been in this role for 2 years, but for different circumstances, I haven't done this process before. So it was my first time. And I think that my supervisor believed in me more than I believed in myself.
Love it.
And it turned out great. And I learned from her, and I also feel like I learned a little bit about myself because I was too stubborn to ask for much help. So I figured it all mostly out by myself. So lots of lessons learned from that process.
Thank you for sharing, ma'am. I appreciate it. Who else? How have you been empowered, or how have you empowered others in their role?
So this is Sasha Masumi from Miami University. Hey, Stephanie. So, one thing I think about is like where can I bring people with me, right? That's a way to empower them. So can I bring them to this meeting, or I'm going to this webinar and I think it might interest you. And just because it says blank level of person doesn't mean you can't come with me. Or even at Campus Home Live, taking people to spaces that I've been invited to, you know, seeing if I can bring that +1. I think even always be searching, but always be searching for the people I supervise. I send people job posts all the time. And I sometimes get a double look, like you're trying to get rid of me. And I say, no, I just want you to know that I think you're ready for this. If you choose not to take it or interested or I'm way off, then fine. But I want people to know that I'm invested in their next step, not holding them back here in the role that they're in. Because I don't expect most people to get a gold watch in the job they're in. I don't think they're going to retire from the job they're currently in. They're going to move on to something else great, and I want to see them succeed.
I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody else before I move on? All right, hearing none. All right, I see you, but a sucky supervisor doesn't, right? So recognize and reward. So you gotta understand who your staff members are, right? And be able to understand how they like to be recognized and rewarded for the great work that they're doing, providing that feedback once again, right, for their growth and development. Tell the story. So it's not bragging, but you as a supervisor, or hopefully your supervisors, telling the great work that you are doing, that the team is doing, and being able to find those spaces where they are literally kind of shouting it from the rooftops, because I'm pretty sure you're doing great work. I'm pretty sure your office is doing great work in some way. How are you telling the story of your staff? What does that look like, right? And how have you creatively recognized your team in the past? Like, I would love for people to talk about what are some of the ways that you recognize your current staff, or maybe ways you thought about recognizing people. That is like an amazing thing that you're doing. So somebody raise your hand and tell me what recognition looks like and how you've been doing it.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Victoria. So I'm actually in a Canadian university at McMaster. So in addition to like my regular meetings with like my coworkers, I obviously like recognize great things about myself, but something I'm intentional about is never mentioning like the bad stuff or things that my staff is struggling with. Just because I always believe that once I have like a staff team, like students underneath me, like I only need to focus like on their success and like never hinder them or like say anything bad about them to anyone else.
Sure. Appreciate that. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Who else recognizes their folks in some fun, unique, or just whatever? Maybe you just recognize them. It's okay. What does that look like?
I painted a rock northwestern purple, and it's a U rock because it has a U on it.
Nice.
And it's an MVP of the week, and they choose one another for giving it at the end of every staff meeting. And then there's a little chant about how you rock.
Yes.
And it's very cute.
I love that. I love it. And look at that. It's probably inexpensive, right? You found a rock, or maybe you bought a rock.
I literally picked it up from courtyard.
There you go. And painted it. And guess what? That means something awesome to someone who gets it, because you rock all the things. Thank you. Anybody else want to share before I move on to the next thing? Recognition is good. It's good for the soul. Maybe. All right, I'll move on. All right, Seki supervisors don't think about their legacy. So you must know the type of legacy you want to leave behind. You must choose to live out that type of legacy. And you must know that everyone is going to leave a legacy, negative, positive, all the things. In some way, you are going to do so, right? So typically people don't think about their legacy, right? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it comes across your mind. You don't think about how you are like affecting other people or the things that come along with it. But you have to think about it. Like, you have to think about the person that you are and how you show up to folks, because this is your legacy. They will either think positively or negatively about you, but this is important to be able to do so, right? So think about it. How do you want people to remember you? We're all not going to be at the places we currently are forever, right? As I said, you're not going to probably get a gold watch from here. You're not going to retire from this place, or maybe you are, but still at some point, your legacy will still be there, right? Whatever the decisions you made, all those kind of things. So you have to think about it. So this is my reminder, right? If you don't remember anything else, don't be a burpee in someone's professional journey. So I would like when I did this presentation in person, I had people raise your hand, right? So I'm not sure if you've ever done a burpee before, but in CrossFit, we do a lot of them. It is as we call it, a functional movement, because sometimes we fall and you got to be able to get up. So you are literally falling to the ground, jumping up and clapping. Yeah, I did it. I got up. But it doesn't feel like it's a simple-ish movement, but it's a lot to be able to do. And typically when people talk about burpees, they kind of frown up, or they look like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that I have to do. And usually you have to do it over and over and over again, because you don't just do one burpee. That's just not how it works. So when I say don't be a burpee in someone's professional journey, like I literally want you to think about how you show up for folks. So when someone mentions your name, when someone says Stephanie Carter-Atkins, I don't want them to frown up like they do every time I see that we have to do burpees in a workout. Like, oh God, don't be that way to somebody, right? So think about your legacy and think about the impact you want to have on someone's life, and don't be a burpee. To me, that is a huge thing. You have such great power as a supervisor, as a leader, so use it wisely, right? I'm not sure if anyone else paid attention to what was going on in like the student affairs, like Facebook group the last couple of days about people talking about toxic workspaces and all those things. But lots of people were talking about bad supervisors at those institutions that they worked at, or things just not going well, or poor decisions that people made. You have such a profound impact on the lives of people that you supervise now or in the future. Think about that. Think about how you want to come across, the impact that you want to make in someone's life, and don't be a burpee, right? Even doctors take an oath to do no harm, because that's important. We should do the same thing. Like, you should truly do no harm in someone's life, right? You should want them to grow and be nurtured and all the things that come along with it. But sometimes people just don't. And that makes you a sucky supervisor when you don't, right? So I do think it's important for people to know, people never remember, or maybe they do remember how you come into a job, but they always remember how you leave it, right? They always remember if you left gracefully, or if you did all the great things and the legacy you leave behind. But if you don't, if you were that sucky supervisor that causes people to leave, or whatever, they will remember that. So don't give people a reason to be able to do so. To me, that is super important. So we've come to the end. I think we got about 6 minutes or so of the presentation. I don't know if anybody has put anything in the Q&A or anything else at this point, but I am open to questions, and I will say, right, like, I may not have all the answers for things, but there are great people also on this webinar that if someone asks a question that I'm like, ooh, I'd love someone else to chime in on it, just raise your hand too. So I'm happy to take any questions, comments, critiques. I mean, whatever. I'll take it if you want to share it at this point. But my hope is that you have spent a little bit of time, as I said, to kind of think about yourself as a supervisor, and that, you know what, I think we often think, one, we are doing bad jobs because some people are very, like, that is just how we default to some days. Like, oh my gosh, I could be doing better. But I bet as you look through this presentation, you're like, you know what, I'm not doing so bad. Like, maybe I could make some tweaks here and there, but overall, I'm not a sucky supervisor. Or if you recognize a lot of things and you're like, oh my God, I really am that sucky supervisor, no one has told me, like, it's not too late to turn this thing around, right? Like, you can turn this ship around and do great things, because again, you are thinking about your legacy, you are thinking about your impact, and you actually want to be a good person in people's lives. So do that. Don't continue to be a sucky supervisor, or someone tells you you are. Like, have a moment of self-reflection and figure out things you could do differently, you could do better, whatever that looks like, but just don't be that person. That's really what this is all about. Yeah. Questions? Ooh, oh, I see some in the Q&A now, right? Yes. Can you offer any tools or resources that we can share with our team to provide us feedback? Absolutely. So there are lots of resources about feedback, and truly some of the easiest things I've seen is if you actually just set aside time, like maybe in a staff meeting or in a one-on-one meeting, you know what, we're going to open the floor for 5 minutes of feedback, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe that scares you to think about public feedback. If it does, okay, we can find a more personal way. Or even when you are asking in meetings, right? I just need to know like what I could do differently, what I could do better, how I'm impacting your life, depending on what seat that you're sitting in. But the feedback does not have to be, it does not have to be like a grand process. To me, it's about being able to have the conversation and ask for the feedback and share that with someone else. But they're great books, obviously, too, if you want to be all like, you know, educational about things. But to me, I think it's just about making space to give and receive feedback and always asking that. If anyone else wants to chime in, please raise your hand, do all the great things about resources for feedback that you may have for folks. Yeah. I'm gonna move to the next one. But if people want to say stuff, please interrupt me. Can you offer any gems on how to handle being a supervisor when you have full days with meetings? Oh man, I see the impact it's having on my team and I want to fix it. Man, that is it. I mean, I think truly, once again, as I mentioned, there is not a lot of time for anything else because we are in meetings. Now, I think the question is, are all of these meetings necessary? And maybe they are. And if that's the case, I think we have to be a little more creative with our time or finding out truly, is this a necessary meeting? Like I actually need to carve some time to be in my office, be around my team, because that's the point, right? Like you didn't just get hired to do this job just to be out of the office or away from folks or behind a closed door. So where can you negotiate perhaps with your supervisor to find out what these meetings are that you actually need to be in? If there's an opportunity, like, I don't know, right? If there's an opportunity for Zoom that maybe you can still physically be in your space and like, maybe people can see you at the door. I don't know, right? But I think you got to find out where there is a line and what it is you can and cannot do. And also just understand, like making sure everyone understands the importance of, I actually want to have some face time with my team. I want to be here. So I can't do this meeting or I can't do that meeting. Or maybe the meeting needs to be shorter in time. We also waste a lot of time in meetings that could be shorter because people talk a lot. Again, if anyone else has any thoughts, please chime in. Leadership podcast. You know what? I will put my, if I would love to share my email. It is Carter-SK. So CARTERSK at WFU.edu. If you will email me, I will happily share some of the podcasts I have. I cannot think of all the ones. And I will say some of them are religious based, some are just a regular leadership based. So I have a wide variety of things. Because to me, I think all of this kind of touches who I am as a person. So I'm happy to share all those things with folks. But please email me, Carter-SK at WFU.edu, and I will happily share it. Could you share what it looks like to not be a sucky supervisor in the middle role? Ooh, I think a lot about the future in some ways, about supervising full-time staff. Yeah, so I think all these things are still the same, right? I mean, the middle manager role is truly one of the most important roles we have, right? As I said, it is kind of the spoke that is moving this wheel. You are in that spot. But I think all those things are still true, right? One, you need to make sure the information you are getting from your supervisor is clear, is kind, is all the things that come along with it. So you can then relay that information to your team. I also think it's important to be able to tell your team, this is all the information I have, right? This is my moment of being transparent. I may not be able to answer all these questions, but I'm able to take your questions back to my supervisor or whoever else and get some answers and come back to you. But I think it's about people understanding, like, I promise you, I'm sharing all the things I need to, like, I know with you in this capacity. I want to be as open and honest, and that takes time with everyone. It's a relationship that people have to get to know you and understand. I'm not withholding. It doesn't do me any good to withhold information from you. Someone just didn't tell me, or I just don't know, or I'm making this up, or whatever that comes along with it. But to me, it's about being able to get all the information you can and just letting folks know. I may not know it. I will find out. If I can, I'll get back to you. I'll talk about it, but that's it, right? So whether you're supervising student staff or full-time staff, they still need the same things from you. It may look differently when you're supervising an adult more than like a graduate student or an undergraduate student, but their basic needs are truly the same for the most part. And they want to know, they want information as best they can. People want to know how they can do their job. They want to know when they're not doing their job well. They want to know when they are doing their job well, how all of that kind of shows up and looks. So am I able to make this presentation accessible? If you will email me, again, Carter-SK at WFU, I'm happy to share it. I shared it with folks at ACUHO as well. I would love to get the information out. I've just put this thing all together, so happy to share it. So what was the name of the book you wrote with your staff? So one, Trust and Inspire. I'm trying to see if I had another one. And the employee experience is the other one that talks about the expectations gap. I do have that one. Be all awkward to like reach on my bookshelf, but Trust and Inspire and the employee experience are two of the books that we read, and there's some other ones, but those are the two that I mentioned in this. All right. I don't see any other questions here. Does anyone have their hand raised? that has a question. Or truly, at this point, I will take all the praise and someone to say, Stephanie, you did a great job, because that would be awesome in this moment for some feedback. So I'm just saying.
I would do the honors and say
Yay!
phenomenal job, phenomenal job. This was a really dope presentation. And on behalf of the Black Professionals Network and ACUHO, we really want to thank you for your gems. I'm asking folks to also please drop in the chat and share some love, like, because this is truly a work that sometimes can be thankless. So we gotta give our flowers and really remember to not be a burpee in someone's professional journey. Right. And that is, and I hope folks really took those words, because legacy is important. And as a supervisor, we have the power and we can impact somebody's experience. So thank you, Dr. Carter-Atkins, for your insights, your gems, and this engaging discussion, and everybody that participated and show love. Before we close, just a quick few announcements. ACUHO will be hosting several webinars throughout the month of May. The next session will be presented in collaboration with the APITA Network and focus on the intersection of residential life and interfaith. That will take place this Thursday, May 1st. So please check out the ACUHO events on the website as well. In addition, the Black Professional Network has several exciting events and initiatives coming up, including our next virtual roundtable on Wednesday, May 8th, 3 p.m. Eastern, as well as our mentorship program, which is accepting applications both for mentors and mentees as well. Be sure to check your email and visit the ACUHO website for more details and registration links, and we would love to see you at our upcoming sessions. Again, on behalf of ACUHO and the Black Professional Network, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing y'all soon. All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for coming.